I'm just making sure it's streaming on everything. Okay, and we're good to go. All right. Let me get my script up here. All right. Well, welcome everyone to another edition of Poor Ancient Crewing the Ship with the Save Ancient Studies Alliance. Today with us are the co-founders of Moirai, or I'm sorry, I should have asked before. Is it Moirai or Moirai? I looked up several different ways to pronounce it. Moirai Myths?
We tend to go with Moirai Myths.
Perfect. Okay. So Moirai Myths is a small, dedicated, and creative indie video game studio. They're currently working on an Irish myth-inspired visual novel titled The Good People. And this crew has put together an engaging story rooted in Celtic folklore. First, though, just a little bit of SASA housekeeping for today's stream before we get started with our interview. So what is SASA? We're the Save Ancient Studies Alliance. Our mission is to reverse the current downward trend in the study of the ancient world by engaging the public and bringing together students and scholars to share their passion for the study of the ancient world, and in order to inspire a vast new generation of students. You can find us on all of the major social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, got a new TikTok. Definitely check us out and follow us there. Our live event protocol, as usual, we just ask that you please be kind and respectful. Listen and ask thoughtful questions throughout the event. You can put them in the chat box, and at the end, we'll read them out live for everyone. Please be patient with technology and those administering it. And lastly, our live events are live streamed on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. And the recordings, I should fix that, will be posted on above platforms shortly after the event. Now, you can also become a recurring donor if you enjoy our live events, our Archeo gaming streams, book clubs, reading groups, our Port Ancient series. Please consider becoming a supporter of SASA with a recurring monthly donation. For as little as $3 a month, you can help us save ancient studies. And just go to saveancientstudies.org/donate to learn more. And Leslie, thank you for joining us. I'll stop my screen share. Get this up. Okay, well, thank you all of you for joining us today. If you want, you can go through a little bit of just brief introductions, tell us a bit about yourselves individually, and we can go from there.
Sure, I'll start. Hello, my name is Clotho. I'm, one of the three fates from Moirai. You may know me as the spinner of human life, all that, but that's my day job. So, everyone needs a hobby, and kind of around the Industrial Revolution, we started like automating our systems. So, now we make visual novels. So, I, behind the mask, am a graduate from Sheridan College. I have a bachelor's degree in creative writing and publishing. And I've always been really passionate about writing and storytelling. And I wanted to make a game with my friends.
And hi, I'm Lakesis, and my day job is giving you your fate and measuring out your live stream. So you're welcome for that. And I am a philosophy student. I have a bachelor's in philosophy, and I am a co-writer. And I'm just here because Irish mythology is a lifelong love of mine, and we wanted to be able to explore it a little more.
All right, hi. I'm Asha Rose. My day job is I cannot say, but it has something to do with IT, and I very much enjoy to be programming for my fellow co-founder here. They invite me into their project, which I found is very interesting to give voice to those who traditionally exclude. So that's who I am.
Wonderful. And again, thank you for joining us. It's great to have you on board as a partner with us. Can you tell us, we'll start off with a bit more about Moirai Myths and why you're so passionate about it. How did you get started? Give me all the details.
Well, originally we just Clotho and I were just talking, and we were like, oh, it would be really cool to have like a visual novel that's based off, the Fae. Actually, we started with much more like the general Fae idea, and then as we got into it, we realized we really wanted to. This was just a great opportunity to really like explore actual Irish mythology, Irish history, and really just get a chance to put a lot of our love out there in this form.
Perfect. So, and I'm sure undertaking a visual novel is a big task. What has been some of your favorite things, I guess, to work on throughout this process? And opposingly, the most challenging?
Well, the development of the characters in the general world is definitely a highlight. I'm one of the co-writers. I really enjoy. It's been very interesting taking the existing mythology and mapping it out in a way that makes sense, translated into this kind of format. There's a lot of, how to phrase this, Irish myths, the original traditions, they were all passed through orally. And a lot of what we know about Irish myths now are dictated through transcriptions that monks produced, who weren't the original, the original practitioners of these beliefs. And so, a lot of that information is kind of, it's not the original information. So all that we have to go on essentially is based off of these texts that we have. And so there's a lot of missing information in that respect. So sort of throughout our process, and this is part of the challenge of adapting a myth like this, is figuring out how to be as faithful as possible to material that we don't necessarily have all of the information on. And taking bits and pieces and sort of meshing them in a way that makes sense from a modern storytelling perspective.
Oh, great. And that actually bleeds into one of the questions I had, because I know that Irish myth, it can be so hard to study because of that oral tradition that it followed, and things changed so much, or just we don't have anymore. And you answered a little bit of that, but like, how did you account for that in general and decide which elements to pull in and maybe which to leave out?
Well, as mentioned, the transcribers of the myths that do exist in the text we do have access to, it's been heavily Christianized, and so
Yes.
That's a byproduct of like the colonization of the area. The people who actually wrote down these stories wanted to integrate the general populace to a new belief system, and so sort of our approach has been to not like totally erase all of that aspects, because that feels a bit presumptuous on our part, but at the same time, it's not necessarily like it's not necessarily as in your face as before. So there are certain themes that you could say are reflective of the text, but we are hoping to account for those themes and sort of discuss the inherent colonization within the text that exists, without necessarily being like, oh, this is the true story. We don't know the true story, at least not in its entirety.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It can be a hard thing to parse out. So definitely my hat's off to you for even attempting that. So, and I know you all alluded to this a bit in your intros. Have you had any formal training in ancient studies? And how did that, I guess, that training, if you had it, or the lack of, affect you as far as outreaching to a popular audience?
I have a bit as a philosophy student, just ancient studies kind of comes along with it. But, of course, with Irish history, there's just not, as we were mentioning, as much there for us to really get into. So it's more about just researching our sources, making sure that someone is giving us, earnest and honest, like a translation or an idea out there as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my background is creative writing and publishing, so I'm sort of more in the interpretive vein of things. So, I mean, the way we've gone about it is we've done our best to find as close to original sources as possible, air quotes, because again, no original sources that we can like read. And yeah.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. And I was wondering what drew you to Irish mythology in particular, as opposed to, say, Greece, where we could say one is almost inundated with so many resources, or Rome, that may have been easier to conduct something through. But, the ease doesn't necessarily speak to passion. So.
Yeah, I think, well, Lachesis mentioned this before, but our original idea for the game was broadly more about fairy folklore in general. And sort of we went on a giant research binge in our initial, idea generation stages. And we kept coming back to the Irish myths and sort of asked ourselves, why don't we hear about this like anywhere else? There's a lot there, even though it's not the original things, that there's a lot to work with. And it's just kind of a shame that this mythology is so little known. And so part of what inspired us to go in a more specifically Irish direction is because we wanted to highlight this mythology, specifically because it is so, unknown. And that isn't to say that our story is doesn't take inspiration from some other aspects of Celtic folklore. If you read the description of our game, it mentions the Seelie and Unseelie courts, which is more based on Scottish mythology. But we included it for thematic reasons related to the text. And there's a lot of interplay between the folklores of the region regardless. But yeah, stories pertaining to the Tuatha Dé Danann and Tír na nÓg, we wanted to focus in on that, because while you may have heard these terms, it's not really that popular in general pop culture. So a lot of things have been made regarding Greek mythology, and we're named after the Moirai. So not to say that popular is a bad thing, but we want sort of our creative goal is to be able to highlight some of these lesser known myths and folklore.
Okay, I mean, that makes sense for sure. And going back to the mythological stories that you did choose to incorporate, were there any in particular that the Good People is centered around that people should look out for or pay attention to?
Right. So the basis of our world building is broadly based on the Book of Invasions, which is sort of, it's not a creation story, because it's not the island still exists, and because the text was written by monks, like the creation story is the Christian creation story, but the text itself is about the various occupations of Ireland, the mythic occupations of Ireland, and how the Tuatha Dé Danann, which is the ancient gods and demigods of Ireland, came to occupy that realm. And so that's kind of the basis of the story. And from there, a lot of other tales, like tales of Cuchulainn and the tragedy of Lear, interplay with the world building itself, and a lot of the characters are connected to these stories. So yeah, I don't know if Lacus has had anything else to add.
Oh, no, I just wanted to add that I actually put up like a screen if anybody wanted to know more about these, so you can see the Irish name and the English name.
Oh, nice. And I know, looking at this, I called the game The Good People. It does have an Irish name as well, but I was not even going to begin to pronounce that with my
Totally fair.
accent.
And actually, the nice thing is we do have a little bit of Gaelic in our game, and we have a translation feature, which is something I'm really excited about. When I was in college, I took an Irish Gaelic class, and only one though, so I'm not fluent. But now we have a fluent Irish speaker on our full production, and we are going to have voiced pronunciations for the Gaelic terms. So as you play the game and come across these Gaelic terms, you can actually hear them. You can read them translated and hear how they're pronounced to help you learn how to say these things. But the title of our game is Nadina Ma.
Okay. Great. Thank you. And I will say I love the idea of having that translation there for people. And I loved when I was playing the demo, if a Gaelic word came up, you could click on it and it would tell you a little bit about that.
Mhm.
So that was very helpful for me.
We've also really found that a lot of people, this is surprising way, a lot of people are getting very into the Irish language after playing our game, and they're starting to learn. So, which is good because it's a language that is at risk. So, because there's so few people who speak it now. So, it's very nice that like we're able to kind of help a little bit boost that.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I at least never want to see, these languages go by the wayside. It'd be horrible to lose them. So resources like this are just fantastic to have. So let's see. I had some more questions here. Why choose a visual novel as a format for a game instead of, maybe an RPG or other types of video games that people might be more familiar with?
Well, there's a few reasons. One of it was, technical limitations is a part of it. We are a group of individuals who didn't necessarily go to school for game design specifically. And there are a lot of, other resources that a more complicated game would involve. So there's that aspect of it. But our game is also very heavily text-based. You'll notice if you play our demo, there's a lot of visualizations in terms of there's like the backgrounds and the characters, they all appear, but a lot of the story is pushed through the actual text. And as noted, I am an aspiring novelist, so it was an ease of what's it called, an ease of translation to be able to go from like prose in a novelist sense to a visual novel because so there's that. It also helps us to tell a very, what's the word? I don't want to say more complex because that's not necessarily true, but it's, help me out here, Lakeisha. Do you have any idea what I'm trying to say? It's
very immersive for one.
Yeah.
And then it allows people to explore just like the story in a different way, because the whole point is about pulling you in and you have active choices that allows people to like kind of explore different options. So it allows us to like novelize our ideas in a way that's not as accessible in other forms of video games.
No, that makes sense. And I will say I loved the format when I tried the demo. And when I got to the end, I may have yelled. I was like, no, I need to know what happened.
Did you try your hand at the password out of curiosity?
Let's see. So I had this one more question here. Sure, I might come up with more as we go if we have time. So working with ancient tales in a way that speaks to modern sensibilities and relates to today's world, it can be a challenge to bring that and make it relevant for people today. How is this project representative of, not just history and the past, but also something that speaks to, people today who would pick up the game and play it at home?
So I think what you'll find is actually a lot of people have a lot of interest in ancient studies and ancient civilizations. It's more about like having access to the information. So this format allows us to present some information in a way that's very accessible to people, and it allows them to take that and kind of take their own initiative to continue their research later if they are interested in it. So that's how I view it.
Mm-hmm. We've also incorporated one of our, primary goals is allowing our players to feel as represented by the material as possible. So we allow the main character to play as any gender that they want. And, that's more of a modern sensibility sort of thing. But and we also, for one of our stretch goals on Kickstarter, I don't know if we'll get there, but I'm really hopeful that we will. We want to be able to allow our players to design the main character's appearance to look more like them, because part of the premise of the game is you are mistaken for another individual in our world who shares the exact same appearance as you do. So we felt it would be very immersive, and it would help our audience relate to the text and feel represented by the text if they're able to customize how they appear in game. So things like that. Another nice thing is because our game is primarily set in an alternate universe, we're able to play with some of the, the general setting is 1840s Ireland, and so not necessarily all of the social values, so to speak, are going to be as prevalent in our world because it's an entirely different plane of existence with a different history and what have you. So that's sort of how we've blended, modern concepts with the ancient past while being, authentic to both.
No, that makes sense. And I think if, we're going to go back to the mission of SASA and save ancient studies and reverse the trends we're seeing in academia, and that outreach and making things relevant to today and to audiences and giving them access is a large part of that, if not the capital part of it that we need to be doing. So I know you have just 3 days left in your Kickstarter as far as when I checked today. So now it's certainly the time to support the good people if anyone is interested in it. I know you said you are going towards stretch goals right now, so you are funded. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to doing if you reach those stretch goals?
Well, there's a few things. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to talk about the side stories, which allow us to explore a little bit more things that maybe just won't fit in the canonical events of the game. So just little backstories allow us to explore the culture more and just little things like that.
I mentioned the customized MC sprite, which is our next goal after that. Again, another one I really hope we're able to do. I don't know if we can, but hopefully. We also have expanded voice acting as a possible stretch goal. We've actually included a limited amount of voice acting in our demo now, in our most recent version. And fortunately, since we're funded, we will continue to have a limited amount of voice acting in our full game, but we have an additional stretch goal to expand that to make it more like partial voice acting. We have another stretch goal for, more outfits for the characters, which is just, a little bit of flavor for to make things more dynamic. And a Switch port is at the very end. We have mini games, and those are our general stretch goals.
Well, perfect. And I so hope you get there with the stretch goals. It's great that it has been funded. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the end product. I did put up the promotional Kickstarter image up there for anyone who wants to get maybe a flavor of the art styles that are in the game. I highly recommend it. And it looks like we haven't had any questions come into the chat, but that is all right. We've only got a few more minutes allotted to this anyway. Do you have any more information you want to put out there? Anything that you want to say before we close or point out to our audience?
I don't know. What about you guys?
Just check us out. We're on Steam and a little indie site called itch.io. So that's for indie developers, which is a direct download, and then you can find it all there.
Okay,
yeah, true. If you're not sure about us after this, you can play our demo. We have about 3 hours of content if you want to see what our story's about.
And we did have one thing in the chat. Good luck from James Howard. Certainly, we will echo that as well on our end here at SASA. I'm looking forward to the game. Definitely check out Moirai Myths stuff, the Kickstarter. I put in the chat, their website, Twitter, Tumblr, all there for you. So follow them, check out their stuff, and I can end the stream now. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.